Dr. Drew, thank you so much for joining the Ladder Run podcast. How are you doing?
Doing great, man. Yeah, happy to be here.
It's a great pleasure to have you on. And for my viewers, this is episode 8, season 1, episode 8. I don't always have that in my thumbnail or in my title, but I do always have it in my descriptions. Pleasure to have Dr. Andrew Haley on. He has his DPT. He's a physical therapist. We'll, get more into that shortly, Dr. Drew. I'd like to start the podcast by you just giving us a brief summary of who you are and where you're from and how you got started in physical therapy.
I'll try to keep it brief. Yeah, man. Grew up in Northern California, went to Chico State to represent Northern California, and went out to Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin for my doctorate. Did that, worked for somebody in Minnesota for a year or two. And then me and my wife were back out in Oregon, started my own business 5 years ago, helping people with something very specific, which I'm sure we'll get into.
We will.
Something I dealt with. And yeah, so that's kind of how I got here. In terms of how I chose physical therapy, probably a longer answer, but I'll stick with that for now. So.
And where are you from?
Chico, California. So
gotcha. From Chico.
Yeah, from Chico. People who are not from that area, it's kind of specific. I know you were in the Bay Area. I don't know if you're from the Bay Area. So
I'm born and raised in the Bay. I think Chico's it's like a couple hours away. I'm not too familiar.
Yeah, 3.5 hours from the Bay. So Sacramento and then north another 90 minutes, basically.
What was your undergraduate degree, Dr. Drew?
Exercise physiology. So there's a lot of ways you can kind of collect the prerequisites you would need for physical therapy school, similar to dental school, veterinary school, medical school. So you can do a lot of different majors that fill that, but I did exercise physiology. This
show is going to be kind of segmented into 2 parts. I want to dedicate the first part, and I'm going to ask you a question about this part momentarily, on just discussing this medically unexplained chronic neurological symptoms that you're hyper familiar with, and you have a very inspirational story yourself. We'll cover that dimension first, and then the latter end of the show, we'll talk about more of your physical therapy practice and what that consists of, your social media that has aided you in touching more folks and just reaching out to more folks who are experiencing this. I would love to hear more about your story. I know that you had a story. I'm familiar with it. I've watched your video. I've worked with you. So I would love for you to just give us a summary of what that was and how that impacted you. Are you someone who's been suffering with neck-related dizziness or some kind of medically unexplained dizziness like cervicogenic dizziness, PPPD? Something like this that's just been plaguing your life. Well, I'm someone who's been suffering that for now almost 2 years, and I have gotten better. And I wouldn't have made quantum leaps in improvement if it weren't for certain products, like having a great neck shoulder heating pad and an ice pack around the neck, having a good neck massager that you can use in the comfort of your own home that helps relax your muscles and helps get rid of knots. If you're not sure about using these items, I would highly suggest that you talk to your physical therapist or talk to your doctor first. But something like the heating pad or the hot pack or a light neck massager is likely very safe to use and is something that will help improve your life right now. I have included links in the description below, products that I have right now that I use to help get rid of neck pain and ease my neck-related dizziness that has been medically unexplained.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, it's very scary and frustrating to go through something like this. I will start by saying one of the things I've learned being a clinician and growing up is I've dispensed the idea that when you go in and you have a health issue, there's a particular pill for a particular health issue. I think I had that mentality like most kids, right? Like the medical system's infallible. If you have something wrong, they'll know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
And that's not true. And that's not because people aren't really smart or work really hard. It's that things are confusing and not as simple as that. So there's a lot of reasons that you can be dizzy that every objective test would come back normal. That doesn't mean anybody did a bad job. That doesn't mean the physicians or the ENTs did a bad job. That's just very, very common. So good to note that. That's what happened to me. So things like cervicogenic dizziness or PPPD, which we'll talk about, I'm sure.
Yep.
Things like that can cause a lot of really severe issues, dizziness in busy places, dizziness with certain movements or positions. And like I said, there's no one blood test or MRI to prove that. I had a concussion, was dizzy, it went away, came back a few years later when my classmates were testing things to my neck and doing different vestibular tests to me. And yeah, it was super scary. Thought I had a brain tumor, was freaking out, was constantly dizzy, tried to get help, no one could figure it out. And basically was stuck in that loop for like close to a year, and finally was able to help myself and basically started the business because I wasn't super pleased with the information and help that I got when I was going through it. So I was like, hey, there's a better way to do this. So that's pretty much what the business is all about.
You mentioned that the culprit that sort of engendered those symptoms was that you had a concussion. And how did you get that concussion? What happened?
Fell off a fence being stupid. And this was years before I ever got dizzy. The dizziness was not directly caused by the concussion. So those answers to like exactly what it is, as you know, we've talked in depth about it, is not a simple thing. Usually like pull up pictures, use analogies, so I'm hesitant to just randomly go into an explanation of what cervicogenic dizziness is, unless that's what we want to get into, because it can be kind of confusing stuff.
It's extremely confusing. And, as you said, Dr. Drew, there's these individuals who are suffering from these symptoms that have seen virtually every practitioner in our conventional biomedical Western model, and they're not getting any answers. And this is what can be so challenging dealing with this, is that the lack of answers. It's hard to mobilize healing when you're sort of throwing darts at a dartboard trying to get better, but you don't even know what's going to stick because you don't even know what the culprit of the reason as to why you're feeling the way you are is. So how did you discover, Dr. Drew, what it was that was causing your symptoms, and what was it that you did to help mobilize healing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So just to be very clear, right, like we've both had frustrations with seeking help and not being pleased by the answers. I just like to be fair, though, that's not necessarily because they did a bad job. Often it's just they're ruling out specific causes, and that's part of the journey, right?
It is.
Things that I was dealing with that you're familiar with in your own life, we're under a very specific section of what needs to happen. So to answer your further question, what did I do? Well, I ruled a bunch of stuff out. Most of these diagnoses, you can use imaging and other laboratory tests to make sure we're not missing something medical. Right? And once you're not, usually you're told like, hey, go to vestibular therapy. The problem is if you try to use vestibular therapy to treat things that aren't appropriate for vestibular therapy, you can make it worse. I have a ton of content about this. I won't go into my TED talk. That's a pet peeve of mine. Basically, what I created is this balance, integrate, grow treatment philosophy that I've used with myself and hundreds of other people, wherein we help the balance systems function normally and basically help them return to where you can go to a store, go to work, go to the gym, cook dinner, do all these things without symptoms. That's what basically through years of research and helping other people, that's what I was able to kind of condense into a treatment philosophy for helping people with these specific conditions.
What might be some examples of these? I've worked with you, so I know, but just so they can hear it from you firsthand, you're a licensed physical therapist. You're really good at what you do. What does that kind of consist of? Maybe a high level explanation of the exercises and whatnot.
100%. So high level would be thinking about it as your brain wants to know where it is in space. It sends out workers to do that job. You can see the world. You can feel your physical body using tiny little cells in the muscles. And you can sense position of gravity and some nerdy things with your vestibular system. What can happen is if your neck isn't working well, your brain becomes hypervigilant and uses your eyes too much. So what I help people with is correcting neck-related issues. That involves a lot of different physical-based stuff, movement control-based stuff, awareness-based stuff, really nerdy, particular cervicogenic dizziness-related treatments, basically. Then what I do is help people correct visual dependence, which is basically what PPPD type stuff is. So there's some very specific visual integration exercises. And then we want to help people scale up and get stronger. So it's a mix of movement-based stuff and then maybe more visual rehab type stuff, and then eventually strength-based stuff.
Have you ever thought about starting a podcast? Most people have a misconception that prevents them from starting, that it's too expensive to start, that the mic's going to cost me too much, the camera, the production is just going to be out of my price range. That's not true. I'm here to dispel that. I'm using a Samsung Q2U microphone, and I'm using a Anker PowerConf C200 2K webcam. I use this for all of my podcasts. And all I spent was under $50 for the webcam, and the mic was just about $100. And you have everything you need. They're both plug and play. Don't let that misconception stop you. You compromise no quality with these two items. They're both fantastic quality, and they're affordable. They're plug and play, and they're easy to use. I've put the links in the description below, so be sure to check them out and start that podcast that you've been looking to start. You have so much knowledge when it comes to this particular matter. And as you know, it's very nuanced. It's very nuanced. You know, there is a large contingent of people, to my surprise, which I found out when I had what I had, or a similar instance, and I was completely ignorant to this contingent of people, Dr. Drew, that are suffering these symptoms that got complete medical clearance from our Western biomedical model. And again, like you said, that's not an indictment on that model. It's just that they study a certain line of medicine, and sometimes it doesn't unearth what is causing these kinds of symptoms. I realize that there's this contingent of people that have been suffering this, and their quality of life, Dr. Drew, has just plummeted like dramatically. It's an invisible illness, because when somebody looks at you, Dr. Drew, and you have this, you look fine.
100%. I mean, I think the number one frustrations that people, the analogy I use is I felt like I was lost in the woods at dark, right? I was trying a bunch of different stuff to help myself get better. I was doing what people told me. I was ending up in the same place. You're trying to hold it all together and still show up to work and show I was in school at the time and be, you know, a partner and a son, and you're trying your best, and it's really, really difficult to maintain that. And like you said, it's not like you wear a cast, so it's not obvious that you broke your arm, etc. I mean, it's a lonely thing to go through for a lot of people. That's why we have group call components of what I do, because going through it alone isn't fun. It's nice to know you're not crazy. We grow up in this medical system that's like, hey, there's a test for everything. That's just not true. We use tests to rule out medical emergencies, but there's no way to prove you have every clinical diagnosis. That's what makes them clinical diagnoses. So yeah, it's very frustrating because it's uncertain. It's scary. It feels lonely. I mean, it's not a fun thing to go through. That's partly why I started doing this, because it was traumatic and I wasn't happy with how it went. So I was like, hey, there's a way to do it better, basically.
I really love what you do, because as you said, you know, you focus on the neck, you focus on that proprioception that's in the neck, and you know, the balance systems, inner ear, and you integrate everything, and you've helped so many people heal. And we'll talk about your practice more momentarily. But just to get back to this contingent of people, Dr. Drew, again, suffering in the dark on this, not getting answers, quality of life has been tremendously impacted. How does someone finally overcome this, Dr. Drew? I know you've touched on what you do to help people. I know there's some people that had the emergence of these symptoms from a physical event, like you. Yeah. You know, they hit their head, they had a concussion, like me. My neck got jerked. It engendered these symptoms. But then I'm sure you work with folks, Dr. Drew, and I'm pretty sure I've been in, you know, some of these group calls that just woke up one day and they can't point to a particular physical event that caused it. So can you just kind of talk about what the approach is to overcoming this for different folks? The origin of these symptoms for them is different.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I think it's good to be honest about what I'm good at and what I'm not, right? So if we're labeling like uncertain neurologic symptoms, a lot of people would fall into that bucket that I would not be the best person to help with. So we'll set that aside. Maybe in terms of what I would recommend for those people, it's an easier said than done thing, which is you try to find somebody who's understanding, empathetic, and has experience to figure out how to help you. If it was easy, everybody would do that. It's difficult to find providers. I've certainly been there. And so I say that with an understanding that that's easier said than done. Obviously, that would be the recommended step in a general sense. In terms of what I do, like you noted, cervicogenic dizziness in general can be the result of acute injury. It can be the result of illness or sickness, or often just idiopathic. No one's quite sure why. Right? In those situations, and I'll keep this as short and sweet as possible, you rule out medical causes. So you get some MRIs, do some testing. If all of that is clear, we're then in the realm of clinical diagnosis. We use movement-related tests, different screenings, symptom history. You can then begin to help people work on it once you have all the information and do a thorough evaluation. So obviously I'm a nerd and that's a very sterile answer because I have a very clinical approach to this. And obviously there's a psychology component or a mental support component as well, but that's how I approach it. That's just a very clinical approach, and that's what I would recommend.
Have you found that most people who engage you that are suffering these symptoms, it's usually something coming from the neck? Cervicogenic dizziness, and correct me if I'm wrong, is just a fancy word for kind of neck-related dizziness.
That's all it is. Yep. So cervicogenic dizziness just means the origin of dizziness is your neck, basically. Everybody I work with typically has some component of neck-related dizziness. Often there's more than one thing going on for some nerdy reasons. The way that our body changes doing its job when you get dizzy can then lead to neck issues because we begin to brace and move differently. So certainly there can be a complex variation in how that kind of happens. But yes, everybody I work with is dealing with neck-related issues of some sort.
Somebody who's been dealing with this for years, or at least over a year, and who just doesn't seem to be making progress, at least certainly hasn't made a quantum leap in progress where they're like, oh, wow, is losing hope and quality of life has been, again, tremendously impacted. What advice would you give to them, Dr. Drew?
First, I would say, I'm sorry you're going through this. It's incredibly frustrating and scary, and I've been there, right? And I think, unfortunately, it's unlikely that the first person you seek help from has the exact answer. And often you do need to go through a pretty annoying and frustrating and scary rigmarole of getting things ruled out, trying to find the right person. I know it's a basic and general advice, but that's what I would try to recommend is like, try to remain calm if you've ruled out medical causes and try to seek help from somebody who has experience helping people with what you're dealing with. Like, I know that's very easy to say and hard to do, but as a general question like that, which I totally understand, that would be my general answer. Now, if there's somebody watching this and they think they're dealing with something like this or dizziness of any kind, I know a lot of people who help people with dizziness. Feel free to shoot me an email. I'm sure you could pass along my contact. I can Absolutely. At least try to point you in the right direction because I know it's frustrating and scary. Now, there's a lot of other complicated health things that I wish I could help people with that I'm just not the best person to do that. So if you're dealing with that, like I said, I'm sympathetic to that and I know it sucks. And I wish I had better answers. If I did, I'd be on a private jet. It'd be amazing, right? Yeah. I can help everybody with everything.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
No kidding. But you've helped so many people, Dr. Drew. You continue to help people, and we'll put your information, of course, with your consent. I'll have your information in the description. I'll have your social media links. I'll have your website, and then maybe even your email, and I'll get your okay on that. We'll get your information in there. Yeah. You are someone who's helped a lot of people with this. So somebody watching who maybe just discovered you through this video, it's imperative that they have the capacity to contact you. Why do you think some people heal faster than others? Like some people suffer this, as you know, Dr. Drew, for years.
100%. I mean, various reasons, right? And once I started doing the right things in the right way, I got a lot better within 3 months, right? And I think that's true for people dealing with cervicogenic dizziness and PPPD. Now, there's a lot of complicated, nerdy, specific reasons that dizziness from other causes doesn't necessarily get better. Something like Meniere's disease, which we won't go into, is a lot different than cervicogenic dizziness inherently. So it's hard to speak to that. Now, if you've been dealing with this and it's not getting better, like I would say you probably haven't been given the right help. I think that's a fair way to put it. Because these things are treatable. I've helped over 500 people with this. Like, it's not something that is a life sentence, cervicogenic dizziness. But I know that's a boring answer. Dizziness is hard to be specific because a lot of different things can cause dizziness. So I don't want to give people unrealistic or false information about that.
Yeah. But it's not insurmountable nonetheless.
Agreed. Yeah. And I'm an optimist at heart, and I'm a huge optimist in the human body. Our bodies are insane. They're amazing. They're miracles. Like they want to get back to a homeostasis. So I'm a huge believer. I've worked with people who have been dizzy for decades and helped them get where they want to go. Right? So it's not going to look the same for everybody. That's just life. We're not all little petri dishes made the exact same way. There's a variation, and can be frustrating. Just the reality of that. But
yeah, those neurological symptoms that you experience, this chronic dizziness, this medically unexplained dizziness that you experience, was that what led you to want to pursue being a physical therapist, Dr. Drew?
I'd already had that plan. So that happened to me when I was 21. I went to physical therapy school when I was 23, 24. Gotcha. And the dizziness I had in the years in between was very mild and on and off. It wasn't something I thought about a ton. So yeah, the passion to get into physical therapy was just something kind of separate. It was something that I had a really amazing mentor. Shout out to Will Wilbur. He's in Chico too, owns a physical therapy practice, and just really loved it. Fell in love with trying to, like, the human body's cool. Straight up. I'm a nerd in that regard. I loved anatomy and biomechanics and just wanted to do it. Just thought it was super cool. So it was more just a kind of, what do you do when you're 19 kind of thing. I don't know. Hard to always remember why you thought what you thought that long ago. But yeah. I only help people with dizziness and neck related dizziness now. So that's 100% of what I do. Been doing that full time for 5 years.
You're more specialized in this chronic dizziness and helping overcome that. What made you want to start your own practice? It's called the Line PT.
Yep.
And it's your practice that you do remotely. So what made you want to start your own practice? Because I'm sure that you probably could have done this working for somebody or working at a physical therapy office. What made you want to kind of get into entrepreneurship? Because that's really what it is.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, I think it was always like something I was interested in, entrepreneurship. And then it was something that happened in stages. I had an idea about help. I always have been interested in helping people with neck issues, just one of the specific nerdy things I'm interested in. So I knew I was good at it, and I had an idea of how I could do it online and help more people. And then over time, I realized that there was a much more hyper-specific need for cervicogenic dizziness help. It's a rare thing that's not that rare if you do it online, because you can find people from different places. And obviously was passionate about it, had been through it, like I noted, wasn't happy. So kind of that classic thing where I just realized there was a need and that it was a skill I had. And so basically created the business to do as good of a job as I could of giving somebody what I would have wanted when I went through this, basically.
Of course, people like you are doing such wonderful work when it comes to this, but it's so nuanced. It's so just not well understood that there's still a need. There's only so many Dr. Drews. That's what gives you such an incredible expertise on this, is that you've experienced it and you understand it firsthand. It goes back to that invisibility of it and getting all these negative tests from the Western medical system, that it's, there's so many question marks around it. Having somebody like you who's been through it, who understands it, is just a godsend when it comes to trying to overcome this.
I mean, yeah, I think it's a unique thing, right? I'm sure you've talked with different entrepreneurs on the show. It's like, we all have, I'm a believer, it sounds cheesy, I'm a believer everybody has something unique to offer. You're here, and whatever has happened in your life is probably partially positive, partially negative. Hard to judge a lot of it, but certainly what happened to me was not something I wanted, not something that was pleasant or fun, but is unique, that it's still very easy for me to put myself in that in those shoes and relate to people who are going through it, because yeah, it's traumatic. It wasn't fun. It sticks with you. And so yeah, positive in those ways for sure.
How has social media marketing helped you reach more folks? I've seen your videos so many times on my For You page, and you've had some videos do wonderfully on Instagram. You have the knowledge and you're a licensed physical therapist doing great work. And there's just contingent of people, right? There's a market for this, people who are suffering from this, who need help. How is leveraging social media help you reach more folks?
I mean, it's kind of the magic, right? Of social media is pretty crazy in some specific ways. A couple things that you realize early on, at least I did with social media, and I think this is true for most people. It allows you to go into an extremely niche market, because there's so many people on Instagram that what is viable in your local city may be different than what's viable through an online business or social media. You can get really nerdy, really specific. Then what it allows you to do is create content that's hyper focused on a particular thing. And if you're scrolling across that like you did, and you see it this thing is speaking to me, because I'm only really talking to one specific person, right? Dealing with one specific issue. So social media is really cool in that regard. Obviously it's got its issues, but yeah, I mean, I built the whole business doing organic social media content. I spent a lot of time trying to make sure that the message I have is something that resonates with other people and not just me, which is hard. But yeah, it's pretty great. I mean, for all its faults, social media is pretty amazing in that regard. So
there's always inherently pros and cons built into anything and everything, but I think that the people that you can reach and the niche markets and the algorithm, and there's no question that you can leverage it for good use. What have been the challenges of being an entrepreneur, Dr. Drew, and running this remote business? What have been some of the challenges and the learning curves that you've had?
No shortage of challenges, man. I mean, starting a business is hard. It's scary. It's like when I first started this, I did not have a way to explain what I did, and it was brutal. It took a good 6 months before it felt like even semblance of it was going well. So yeah, it's not easy. I don't think it's for the faint of heart, but I'm extremely happy I did it. But it's it's not easy. I think trying to communicate your value in a way that other people understand and not just that you think is interesting is difficult. So marketing's harder than you think. I learned that. And so other challenges, I mean, I think are the classic entrepreneurial thing where it's easy to have ideas, hard to be disciplined enough to execute them without somebody telling you what to do all the time. When you're your own boss, it's hey, it's a lot of work. It's a passion. I've definitely worked harder doing this than I ever have on anything else. I've been closer to burning out than I ever have been, but it's it's a passion. I put a lot into it. So I'm at a place now where I've been better at drawing boundaries, but yeah, I mean, those are the challenges. It's scary. It was hard. It can burn you out, but yeah, I mean, I think that's an honest answer.
Yeah, entrepreneurship is scary, and you got to have a certain tolerance for risk. There's all this entrepreneur porn nowadays of just go be an entrepreneur. You're just going to make all this money, drops you. No, slow down. It's not for everybody. It's hard. It is tiresome. It is unpredictable. How did you get your first patients? Was it just through social media marketing?
Gosh, man, I have to think back. Yes. Yeah, I think so. So pretty early on, I realized I knew that I wanted to do an online business. I mean, inherent in that, I think you're okay, I'm going to have to find people online kind of deal. And, I did a bunch of stuff longer conversation. I did all sorts of kind of more things that weren't a great idea, that didn't pay dividends. And then over time, just really realized social media was kind of it. That's where people are. That's where the people that wanted my help were. That's where they spent their time. And so spent a lot of time, like I said, a lot of time trying to figure out, what did I want the message to be? Because I knew I could help people, but it's well, what am I trying to get across? And that's harder than I thought it would be. So yeah, did it through social media, getting too far ahead of myself, but yeah.
Dr. Drew, really great pleasure to have you on.
Appreciate it, man.
For sure. I'll get your information in the description of the video so people can reach out to you. You have a great practice. Again, it's called the Line PT. It's by Dr. Andrew Haley. He helps people with cervicogenic dizziness, medically unexplained dizziness. Great pleasure to have you on. And I will keep in touch with you, Dr. Drew. Take good care.
Always good to see you, man. Thanks for having me on.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Drew.